let's see, do I have control here? Yes, I do. Fantastic. So my role here is basically to give some context why we decided to host this webinar, and also to give some background of some of the challenges in editing Wikipedia. So the inspiration from this webinar really came from a poll conducted in August this year, where we asked OCLC Research Library Partners, metadata management interest group members, whether or not they assigned staff and metadata services to write and improve Wikipedia articles. As you can see from this pie chart, most respondents said no, although a few noted that staff outside of metadata services do edit or write Wikipedia articles. So we thought that because there was such a lot of interest in this topic, we should share the experiences of those who are improving Wikipedia articles with library or archival content. One of the things that my colleague Lorcan Dempsey has been saying some time is that discovery happens elsewhere. Discovery happens not necessarily in our library catalogs or on our websites, but generally people start with a Google search, and quite frequently that Google search will take them to major portals such as Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a great target for collaboration with the library community, but there are really some special challenges, and some of our speakers will be talking about these. But just some of the challenges are being able to find Wikipedians to collaborate with. They are distributed and virtual. Unlike us, they don't sit at a desk in a location where we can find them. They're really pulled in by a variety of interests, so it can be difficult to find them where they, off Wikipedia. And additionally, Wikipedians have a real culture of combating link spam. So they're very alert for people who are adding links to resources, particularly people who work at institutions who are linking back to content in their own institutions. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But Wikipedia's mission is really very aligned with the library mission, which is to share human knowledge and to share it in a free and open way. And that's really our mission as well. So even though there are challenges, there are also quite a bit of synergies. And we're going to talk about those, some of those today. One of the really fantastic things is the scale and reach of Wikipedia. And this is why I think that all librarians and archivists should be really interested in Wikipedia and contributing to Wikipedia, because the current reach is really quite amazing. And some of our speakers will talk about how contributing to Wikipedia has helped with increasing access to content on their own websites. But this is something that we should really not lose sight of. So I'm going to that wraps it up for me. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just introducing our speakers as in the order in which they'll be speaking. And I'll do that all now so that we can just continue with the presentation. Our first speaker, Mary, is head of digital collections at the Bancroft Library on the UC Berkeley campus and manages massive digital collections of archival and special materials, and leads digital initiatives to increase access and engagement around collection materials, both digital and analog. Mary will demonstrate adding a link to a finding aid in a relevant Wikipedia article. And Mary and I are sitting together in an apartment in Washington, D.C. In advance of the CNI meeting, which we'll be dashing off to attend just after this webinar. Andra is head of special collections management at the Getty Research Institute in Los Angeles, and will describe her department's use of Wikipedia to improve discoverability of collections and some roadblocks that they navigated along the way. Our third speaker, Dan, is African Studies Curator at the University of Florida George A. Smathers Library. He was awarded the Center for Research Libraries' 2012 Primary Source Award for access for his work employing search engine optimization techniques to connect scholars with the digital Jean-Marie Dershad collection. And he will, I'm sure, correct my pronunciation of that collection. Maralise joins the faculty of the University of Miami Libraries in August of 2013 as cataloging and metadata librarian focused primarily on Qubit heritage collection. This presentation shares the results of a pilot project conducted using the CHC theater collections at the University of Miami Libraries and demonstrates the RAMP, Remixing Archival Metadata Project Editor. And finally, Liz McCarthy is the Communications and Social Media Officer at the Bodleian Libraries, University of Oxford. Thank you. As well as librarian for the University Museum and Special Collections Services, University of Reading. Liz has worked with the local Wikimedia community to organize edit-a-thons to use library content to improve Wikipedia and will be sharing her experiences. So I'm excited that we have such a broad range of presenters with a variety of experiences to present, and I'll turn it over to our first speaker, Mary Ahlings. Mary.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about doing the bare minimum at UC Berkeley, and I'm going to just explain why the bare minimum. So many of us have a lot of work to do and very little staff to do it. So of course we've all been trying to find ways to do more with less. And so part of this is finding ways we can get materials into the hands of users more quickly by doing more small, agile projects instead of crafting big, complex efforts that we can't always sustain. And this approach isn't new. I liken this to what Trevor Owens at the Library of Congress called doing less more often. And Trevor's 2012 digital strategy riff on the more product, less process approach, he talked about taking minimal steps to get material into users' hands faster, to basically focus on the bare minimum we can do to support that goal, as opposed to becoming bogged down by what we might do in the infinite world of possibilities that digital strategies offer us. So improving Wikipedia articles is just one of these strategies, and I'm going to talk about how you don't need to do anything really big to make an impact. You can do more by doing the bare minimum, and for those of you who don't know, Berkeley's mascot is a bear. So there. Okay. So in 2009, recognizing the importance of big information hubs and social networking sites in the discovery process of our users, Bancroft launched a number of web initiatives to move archival information into these elsewhere environments, the ones that Lorcan Dempsey talked about in 2007. So the idea was to put our materials out in the world to help users connect with collections in places where they were already working and playing. So the 2009 Wikipedia project we launched was set to run for 9 months between October 2009 and July 2010. And the goal was for us to add links to Bancroft finding aids in Wikipedia articles. And we prioritized these links based on providing substantive content to those articles. So we will find an article that was highly relevant to the material we had. And we only added links to those articles that were already present on Wikipedia. We weren't going to be adding new articles at that point. And then we linked both finding aids that had and did not have digital objects in them. So we were working with both types of collections. So before we got started, the first step was researching what others had done, and we spent some time researching and reading articles by librarians who had tried editing Wikipedia and had their work removed, and others that had been more successful. So we really wanted to try and learn from other people's successes and failures to see what we could do better. Our project lead, Arcadia Falcone, learned and spent a lot of its time learning about the culture and editing guidelines and general practices within the Wikipedia community, which was very helpful. We came up with a plan for metrics. We wanted to check links after the fact to ensure that they weren't removed, which would indicate to us that we are acting responsibly. We wanted to monitor traffic and analyze it both before, during, and after our project. And then we chose a group of materials to link, which were basically all those finding aids that we could identify relevant articles on Wikipedia. We also kept a list of those Wikipedia potential articles we could write in the future after this project was over. Then we set up our personal accounts because you can't edit on Wikipedia as an organization or an institution, so you work as an individual. And we have all set up accounts, and Arcadia worked for our institution through her personal account. And then we got started. So we set up a consistent link format in the beginning for exactly how we wanted to enter the information, putting the name of the finding aid or guide first, and then providing a link to the Bancroft Library page on Wikipedia. We felt that having at the Bancroft Library in the citation helped to provide context and credibility to the link. And then we also placed it at the end as opposed to putting our institution name first, so that it didn't smack of self-promotion, which was in line with Wikipedia guidelines and therefore meant the edit would be less likely to be removed. So we added links to finding aids, and here's an example of a finding aid or Michael O'Shaughnessy, whose papers we hold. We went ahead and added the link here to the external links. You can see that down at the bottom, Guide to Michael Maurice O'Shaughnessy Papers at the Bancroft Library. And that link would take you to the Online Archive of California and the finding aid for those materials. So I'm going to go ahead and switch now. Oops.
I need to go to share.
Sure, I got it. Okay, now I'm going to show you an actual finding aid in the works. So this is how we do the work we are doing. Take the name of the finding aid, and we go to the article here. And we're using a visual editor now, which is in beta, and Marilee was kind enough to show us this lovely thing. So we're going to go ahead and add an external link. Here for the guide. We're going to go back and grab the URL, which is here. And put in the link. And then the end. And then we're going to go ahead and just link to the Wikipedia page for the Bancroft Library. Okay. And there we go. That is all we were doing with each of our finding aids that had an article that was, and here we want to add an, this is a minor edit, and we're going to make a summary of what we did. And let me see. And that's it. Okay. All right. So that's it. That's as easy as it is to add a link to an external or to an article in Wikipedia. We also found when we were looking through the articles we wanted to add links to that a bunch of people had already linked some of our material and our digital objects directly to Wikipedia. So in many cases, we're not having to link. People are doing it for us already. And there's the land case map that we have linked. So what we saw at the end of this project, what we did, we had added 359 links to online finding aids. We saw a 500% increase in traffic from Wikipedia after the project, and that was pretty significant and exciting. It accounted for a 37% increase in overall traffic that we saw in our stats. Another interesting thing we found was that finding aids with digital objects had 4 times as much traffic as finding aids alone, which tells us that there's a lot of interest in linking information that has digital content. And overall, our edits remained in place. And that helped us to understand that we were doing things right. And in fact, we were contacted by Wikipedia editors and asked to write articles and add more links. So that told us we were doing something right. So we're looking forward to doing more of that work. And, okay. So as a result of our Wikipedia project, we now have put Wikipedia into our regular publishing workflow. So as new finding aids are published, we add links to Wikipedia where there are relevant articles. So what started out as a pilot digital strategy to get more information into the hands of our users, it's ended up being a low-bar step that we've now added into our regular workflow. It takes very little time and effort on our part, yet yields a good return for users of our content. So we have plans for the future to do more with Wikipedia, and there's always more we can do. But for now, we are content doing less more often by doing the bare minimum. Okay, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Andra. Thanks.
Okay, this is Andra at the Getty Research Institute. And hopefully, okay, I just lost the,
sorry. Andra, it looks like you're sharing screen. Because I can see your screen. I can see your screen.
I lost the page with the presentation somehow.
You have to click on this, right?
Yeah, you need to go. So if you go all the way up in your browser, yeah. I think you should be able to get to something that'll say "Stop Screen Sharing."
Okay. Oh,
there you go.
Okay. So I'll screen share when I'm ready to do the demo. Okay. All right, so like the Bancroft, at the GRI, our Wikipedia editing is limited primarily to adding links to articles, though we also do some article enhancement. Because Mary has already described the advantages of Wikipedia editing in terms of increased web traffic, I'm going to focus on some of the problems we have encountered at the GRI and how we have solved them. We first started systematically adding links to Wikipedia in 2011. And we also focused on archival collections, in part because they are rich and valuable resources that will be of interest to researchers, and in part to improve discoverability of our finding aids, which are often buried on the second, third, or even fourth page of Google search results. So as I mentioned, in 2011, that's when we got started, 2 staff members began systematically adding links to Wikipedia pages and quickly ran into the first hurdle. Both of them were blocked from editing due to a perceived conflict of interest. They received harshly worded emails from Wikipedia editors and were blocked from even logging into their accounts. Since then, Wikipedia culture has shifted to be more tolerant of apparently self-serving edits, as long as they also advance the goals of Wikipedia. In fact, it is best to be transparent about your affiliations, as I will discuss in a moment. We resumed systematic editing in 2013 and then hit another hurdle. This time, a staff member began adding links from Wikipedia articles to existing finding aids, along with brief summaries of the collections, which she copied from the finding aid. She also corrected errors and made other revisions and wrote a new article by repurposing text from the biographical note in a finding aid. Her work on that article and many others was deleted by Wikipedia editors because her use of the finding aid text was seen as a copyright violation, and she also received a harshly worded email. Thankfully, we have cleared both hurdles. We now encourage staff to include a conflict of interest statement on their user pages. I've copied my own conflict of interest statement on this slide. It is modeled after Mary Lee's with additions based on my colleague Sarah Sherman's user page. In case you can't read the small text, I will summarize for you. In the statement, I acknowledge that I am employed by the GRI and that while I edit Wikipedia articles, I also try to improve access to related primary sources in libraries and archives. I think the most important sentence is the declaration that I will only make edits that are beneficial to the goals of Wikipedia. And then I conclude by inviting other editors to contact me if I appear to do anything contrary to Wikipedia etiquette or editorial guidelines. Our solution to the problem of perceived copyright violation was to dedicate our finding aids to the public domain using CC0. I've seen that some other institutions use a Creative Commons attribution that allows the finding aid text to be shared or adapted for any purpose, but requires appropriate credit. And either way, the text may be repurposed for Wikipedia articles. So now that we're back up and running, we are doing the work that was previously deleted over again, and we also add links from Wikipedia articles to new finding aids when they are completed as part of our workflow. We edit the articles when we see errors or omissions, and we also have a long list of people and organizations about whom we would like to write new Wikipedia articles. For most of them, we have already written biographies or administrative histories in our finding aids and would like to repurpose that text. We know RAMP can help with the process, and we've been looking into it, but we haven't made much progress yet. So I look forward to hearing from Mary-Lise about how they're using RAMP at the University of Miami. And the GRI is hosting its first Wikipedia edit-a-thon on February 21st as part of a larger project called Unforgetting LA. My colleagues in research services are organizing the event, and I think we are all eager to hear about Liz's experience with edit-a-thons at the University of Oxford. So now I'll do a brief demo of the kind of editing we're doing at the GRI. My example today is Kirk Varnado, whose archive we have at the GRI. And in fact, this is one of the pages that had a link that was deleted previously, so I'm going to add it again. I did enhance the article a little bit last week. I added some more information about his undergraduate and graduate education. I'm also going to add a link to an oral history at MoMA because I have found it useful, and I think others will also. So I am logged in, and Mary used the visual editor. I'm going to show you the maybe less friendly source, editing approach. And if you scroll down at the bottom of the references.
Hey, Andrea, this is Marilee. If you could go up and share your screen now, that would be good. We're still seeing the slides.
Okay.
Perfect. That looks like it's
working. Okay.
Yep. That's great. Thanks.
Sure. So maybe, let's see. I'll cancel that so that you can. So this link here is how you do the visual editor. I'm more accustomed to editing the source code, so I'm going to go in and show you that. I'm going to add a section for external ref links. And then here we have the Kirk Varnado papers. This is our finding aid. I have already typed. So basically, I'm going to add the title, the date, and we use handles for our finding aids to ensure that they are persistent links. So I'm going to add all of that right here. And then after the citation itself, I'm going to copy and paste the abstract just to indicate what kind of material the collection holds. And then, as I mentioned, I'm also going to add an external link to this oral history at MoMA. And then I too will add a summary of my edits. Minor edit, save page. And then I want to also point out, sometimes it's useful to add a note to the talk page. Talk pages are where Wikipedia editors communicate with each other, and every article has a talk page. And it was especially important for us to add something here because this entire paragraph is about why our link was previously deleted because of the perceived copyright violation. So I already added this note here that explains that our finding aids have been dedicated to the public domain, and so they can be repurposed for Wikipedia articles. And that is my demo. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over now to Dan at the University of Florida.
Thank you. This is Dan. Thanks, Andra.
Absolutely.
Oh, good. I'm just making sure people can actually hear. I'm using the phone to call in. So I think this has been really exciting to hear about all these projects at the institutional level and all the things that people are doing to enhance Wikipedia. I find that when people ask me about my own work with Wikipedia, what I find is that they're interested, they think what they're interested in is the mechanics of editing. And in fact, and especially as we've seen, there's several ways to edit, and the visual editor has made the process very, very accessible. And so I don't consider myself an expert at editing, but what I have looked into quite a great deal is the purpose for editing, why it's important. And that's what I'm going to focus my remarks on here. So really, primarily, what got me into this is realizing that, as several articles and others have seen, and I think as we know as librarians but maybe don't fully appreciate, is scholarly researchers and patrons in general are most often doing their research outside of libraries. They're not coming in to use our computers. They're frequently not making themselves available for what traditionally librarians did, librarians and curators, and kind of doing reference interviews and finding out people's interest and leading them perhaps down a different path than they intended to direct them to the kind of resources that are useful for their own research. So, you know, under the kind of the new circumstances of people working independently outside of libraries is a kind of a shift in focus. When we think about public service, I think that we also just have to look at ways that we can enhance the research experience of people that aren't using our discovery services, that aren't in our buildings, that aren't talking to us. And one of the ways that we can do this is by enhancing publicly available resources and by leading all users of search engines to resources that we know will be useful. So it's really a change in focus, and this is something that kind of gets us out of our comfort zone, I think, to some extent. We talked about search engine optimization. It's largely a term that's been used in kind of marketing and web retail and all kinds of things like that. And it has somewhat of a bad name among some people, but it helps me focus on what we're doing when we're looking at Wikipedia articles and when we're enhancing them. It's not necessarily about the writing and the reader. And very often that's what people are focusing on, is thinking about someone sitting down and reading an article and then being led toward finding aids and other resources that perhaps we've added in the external links. But in fact, if we're providing good, rich links to sites that are also well used, we know that Wikipedia is among the top 10 sites on the internet. It's a major resource for the search engines, such as Google, and they use the network of external links in Wikipedia as a way to evaluate how important a given resource is and where to place it on search engine results. that's done through algorithms, and I don't think it's necessary that everyone understand what those are. I don't. I'm no expert in the page ranking myself. But what's important is to see that if we do these enhancements in Wikipedia, we're changing the way general search engines and general web searching actually works. So someone doesn't have to read the Wikipedia article. They don't have to necessarily know what our resources are that we're linking to from the Wikipedia article. But in fact, if they're searching for things that are related to the topics that we're treating, that in fact they'll get different results when they do their web searches. So I think that's kind of the magic of doing work with Wikipedia. We're serving not just our own patrons, but the general public, but we can also, you know, if it fits with our institutional mission better, we can understand that our own users, when they're out on the general web, are having an enhanced experience based on this kind of work. And I just want to reiterate, if you do get into editing any Wikipedia articles, adding links and all that sort of thing, checking what their policies are, looking at the conflict of interest statement, and really above all else, just focus on this public service approach. And I think you kind of can't go wrong as long as you're you know, acting in the best interest of users. It does help to have, if you're copying any material, to have a CC license on your finding aids or wherever you're copying material from. We've had that experience at our institution as well, some pages being removed or edits being re-edited, taken out, reverting back to a previous version. But if you're careful to have the statement about your potential conflict of interest, and you have your finding aids available for copying and that sort of thing. Sometimes the institutional copyright statements get in the way there. So I think those are really important things to pay attention to. And my simplest point is that when you do this kind of work, that it increases the visibility of resources. I myself found that once I had submitted a Wikipedia article, I did some biographical work as a part of processing a manuscript collection, and found afterwards, and it wasn't really a strategic move on my part, I just went and did some general searching, and I found that the collection and the Wikipedia article were some of the top results, when I had previously had a lot of trouble finding my own work. If I just did a general search, it didn't come up in results. And so what I'm showing here on this slide is a search that doesn't name the collector or the collection, just names related people and place. That in fact these things come up very high on the first page of search engine results. And so you can see it has a tremendous impact. And it's quite fast. The indexing goes on, and it may take several days, but the impact is pretty strong. And you can see this collection is a non-English language collection. It's pretty obscure. It's early 20th century, 1920s oral histories in Rwanda and Eastern Congo. It's really not the kind of thing. It's not going to compete with video games or manga cartoons or all kinds of popular culture stuff that's out there. But in fact, if you put in related terms, it's popping right up. And to me, that's more important than the stats and the impact on use of our collections, in fact, although that's important to me. But what's really happening is if people, in this case, if scholars are interested in related topics to this collection, they'll find the collection too. So it truly is an enhancement to research. The other side of the search engine optimization, is that if you make sure that the external links are leading to content that's rich and valid and related, that's an important thing. That's one of the ways that the search engines will evaluate the value of the resource. And so I did a number of things related with this collection beyond just the Wikipedia side of things. I provided an item level index, which was available because this originally was a microfilm collection and we had an index. There's also, I had permission from a scholar to include full text of his monograph on that he used this collection intensely for the writing of that book level treatment, and also provided a translation from a French biography of the collector, who's Jean-Marie Dershide, a Belgian zoologist who worked in Eastern Congo and in Rwanda in the 20s. So finally, in terms of impact locally on once we've done this kind of work, these are the stats from the collection, digital collection site, from the logs of the site. And it's not up to date, but you can see there was a tremendous impact after some of this work was done in October of 2011. And very, very quickly after that, we had pretty good growth, and I've been really astounded at the level of use of this collection. Again, it's pretty arcane stuff. It's non-English language, and we're getting tens of thousands of hits. So when I've compared this to some of the other work I've done, it's just gotten great use, and I really attribute it almost entirely to the enhancement of the Wikipedia article and providing those links from there. So I'm going to turn things over, and I know Mary-Lise has done some really interesting work at the University of Miami, and I'll pass this along to her.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be able to share with you our experience at the University of Miami Libraries in creating Wikipedia articles using the RAM tool. I will focus on showing how to use the tool, since the other participants are covering the wiki side of things. So in the library community, we have access to unique collections that have been curated by archivists and librarians. So we are in a unique position to use this data and contribute it to Wikipedia. In an effort to expose our collections at the University of Miami Libraries, we developed the RAM tool. RAM stands for Remixing Archival Metadata Project. It was a collaborative project that included members of the Cataloging and Metadata Services Department, the Web and Emerging Technologies Department, and stakeholders from the Cuban Heritage Collection, Special Collections, and University Archives. The original development period took about 2 months. There was no external funding, and the most important thing to highlight here is that the tool is open source. So RAMP is a web-based editing tool that allows you to do 2 things: generate records for creators of archival collections and to publish the content as Wikipedia pages. So basically, the way it works is that the editor extracts biographical information from EAD finding aids using the EAC CPF format. It also allows for integration of additional data from other sources, such as WordPad identities and VF, and transforms all this information into wiki markup for publication to Wikipedia. So we decided to do a pilot project, but before jumping in, we put together a RAMP workflow to propose to stakeholders. As you can see in the graph, the first step was to use the tool to remix all the information. Once that was done, we created the wiki draft. Then the writer from the library's communications department reviewed the draft for consistency. At that point, the curators from each department were going to have an opportunity to make changes. And then we made the page live. Once it was live, the library's communications department took care of advertising the project through social media and on a blog post, actually. So, as I mentioned earlier, for the pilot project, we used the CAC theater collections. So we used the LibGuides as a starting point to find the collections we wanted to work with. There were 32 collections in total. We also worked with their finding aids to identify the ones we were interested in bringing to Wikipedia based on their completeness in terms of biographical notes. And we ended up using 18 of those collections for which we created Wikipedia pages. So now I'm going to attempt to do a live demo. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so hopefully you are seeing the ramp homepage now. So on the first half of the page, we can find information on what the tool what the tool is, what it does, as well as links to demo videos that show you how to actually do it. On the second half of the homepage, we have 4 areas of functionalities. We have convert, edit, create, and export. I had already imported a couple of EAD records here so that I can choose one for the demo. I'm just going to choose the first one. Let me see if I can enlarge this. Okay. So as you see here, there are buttons on the top for ingesting, saving, and converting. The view we are seeing here is the XML, which can be edited on this screen, or it can be you can do it later on once you have the information in Wikipedia. So let's click on ingest worker identities. We are presented with a prompt where we can edit the name if we need to, but I'm just going to click OK. So here we are presented with a list of results. It's always advisable to verify the results to make sure that you choose the correct match. You can do that by clicking on the name to open the link, or let's see if I can open it. And then you can review the information and make sure that's the rounded below that you want to import information from. So I'm just going to choose that one. And you click on selected worker identity. You select the worker identity. So now we are presented with a list of faceted headings to choose from. This can be used as a reference once we are editing the wiki page to create categories. Just going to choose one for demonstration purposes. And then you click on select a subject. Now here, this is a confirmation of what has been added to the XML record. You just click OK. And pretty much the same process goes for the via section. So I just gonna click OK to do a search for that name. And then you choose the correct match. again, you can click on it and open the VIA page for that person and make sure that's the person that you want. And so now we have a list of name entity recognition. So you can you have to take a closer look at the results before making a selection. If you don't want to select anything, you just click on cancel, and we will go back to the original page. And at this point, I'm just going to save the XML to make sure that we have the latest version in the database. And if you notice here, we have check marks, meaning that we already visited that section. So I'm just going to click on Convert to Wiki Markup. It should take a couple of seconds. So what we see here is a text box with formatted wiki markup. It can be resized, and you can edit information here if you want to. Or at this point, I'm just gonna save it because I'm not gonna be editing anything right now. And we have here the option to check for Wikipedia to see if there's a wiki page for that person. We can actually do this without having to leave the editor. So I'm just gonna click on check Wikipedia for existing articles. Oh, okay, it seems that we have an error in the XML. That's what happens when you do live demos. Okay, I'm not seeing it. Let me try again. Sure. Okay. I'm not gonna waste time on this because I know that there are other presenters, but basically you would click on check Wikipedia for existing articles, and it would actually, if there's an article already in Wikipedia, it would actually bring in a list actually of the article or related things, and you're supposed to look through it, and again, there's going to be a link, and you can click on the link, and it will take you to the actual Wikipedia article. So you can choose that if in cases where you have information on your local database that you want to integrate to the actual wiki page. So what was supposed to happen was that we were supposed to get a second box. So we would have two boxes displaying on the screen, and we could copy information over to the already existing Wikipedia article. And then at that point, we could save it as a draft, as a wiki draft. And once you submit it as a draft, that actually means that a stop page is created under your Wikipedia user account. So we will be prompted to enter the username and password, your Wikipedia username and password. And so I'm just gonna show you how the wiki page actually looks after you do all that work with the tool. This is one of the pages that we created for the pilot project. And as you can see here, all this information was pulled in from OCLC. work at. So we have all the OCLC numbers. Then the rest of the information came from the finding aids. And then in the external links section, we made sure to include a link to the finding aid, a link to the library collection, and then to just the link to the library. We also included a link to the digital collection for the creator, and we linked it to the Cuban Theater Digital Archive. And in this particular case, we also found a resource in the Internet Movie Database, so we also added that link. And one more thing to mention is that we included, as you see here, we included a rights statement with the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike in every single finding aid that we use to create wiki pages. I'm going to stop sharing the desktop now and go back to the PowerPoint. So here we have a graph that was created using data from Google Analytics for all the pages on the UN Library Finding Aids site. It covers a period of 1 year. The referrals from Wikipedia, as you can see here, account for 1% of the total page views. And on the next one, we can see the wiki referrals for the 6 months following the pilot project. So the 18 pages that were created for the project accounts for 13% of the total traffic during that period. So we can see that those pages are already making an impact. There's still a lot that we can actually do, and that we are going to continue. There's a lot that we are actually doing right now. And as you can see on the slide, the future will only contain what we put in now. So we will keep on working on this, and hopefully we will see results in the near future. And now I will turn it over to Liz.
Okay. Hello. I'm Liz McCarthy, and as I was introduced, I'm the Communications Social Media Officer at the Bodleian Libraries, and then I am also the Rare Books Librarian for the University of Reading, which means that I have a great combo of kind of getting to work with collections in both places, and then also finding ways to share the collections, particularly online and with digital tools. My background in terms of Wikipedia usage, I'm not a heavy editor, although I do bits and pieces here and there, but I'm quite keen that we use it more across the libraries, and so I got involved in editathons a couple of years ago around a particular project, and we've been working quite hard here at Oxford to get ourselves a Wikimedian in residence, so hopefully we'll be advertising for that in the next month or so. So if anyone's interested, do keep an eye out. I just thought I'd explain briefly what an editathon is for those of you who haven't attended one or haven't worked on one before. It's just a scheduled time where people get together to edit Wikipedia together. You might be using specific library content, or you might be bringing out curators or people with specific expertise to help share knowledge. You're trying to improve Wikipedia together, essentially. So it can be a collection, there can be a theme like women in science or theater or art, or just a desire to improve things together. The participants don't have to be experienced at all. Often Wikipedia editathons offer a bit of training at the beginning of the day, or are structured to allow people who are newbies to Wikipedia to get the experience and some feedback and learn what they're doing. So why in the world would you want to run an editathon as a library or a museum or something like that? Besides the fact that it helps build Wikipedia, from a library perspective, you're helping develop access to your content, your expertise, or your knowledge. So it's part publicity. It's what we're trying to do anyway, is get people to use what we have, and it's a great way just to get it out there and to let people know what you have. It also fulfills our larger mission of contributing to knowledge development more generally. I think a lot of us believe in open content and open knowledge, and it's a great way to kind of give back to that community. So my experience with editathons at the Bodleian, the first one that we ran was in May 2013, and it was around an online resource that we launched. It was the digitized versions of Queen Victoria's journals, so massive amounts of content in various forms online. We had about 2 weeks to organize it, which wasn't very much time, and I wouldn't recommend trying to throw together an editathon in that amount of time. But we ended up getting 16 participants, and in the end it was pretty successful. We had 38 articles either improved or created, which kind of I was thrilled with. People were working on things as varied as Queen Victoria's pets, so the dogs that she'd owned, to countries that she visited, you know, African leaders and that type of thing, who she'd had interactions with, her state visits to places around the country. So someone who had noticed that she visited his hometown at some point and mentioned it in the journals was able to work on that a little bit. And one of the things that worked out the best for us, and I know this isn't an option for everyone, but depending on where you're located, we were able to work with the local Wikimedia UK Foundation. So because we're in Oxford, we're only about an hour from London, and they were extraordinarily helpful in providing us with trainers and advice on how to do things and helping us get a bit more publicity. So if that's an option, definitely contact your local chapter. And I should say cake was one of the most important bits. People really enjoyed that bit of things. So that was quite successful for us, enough that we wanted to do it again. After we ran the editathon, Wikipedia moved from kind of 1% of our referrals to the resource to being the 4th highest referring site, and it's averaged over the past 2 years about 6% of traffic to the website, which is quite decent for us. The next one that we did was around another online resource that we worked on. So we had digitized library content around a Tudor house that was outside Oxford and its history. So there were images and manuscripts, you know, bits of information about the house, bits of information about the people that were involved in the house, and that type of thing. So we used archives, there were books, there was art, we had oral history and interviews with people who were currently involved in the house and owned it, and that type of thing. And we decided to hold 2 events this time instead of 1. So we had one sort of standard editathon where we had 15 participants, and people were editing articles related mostly to the individuals who were connected to the house. But the other side of things was we had a morning Wikipedia editathon, which formed part of an outreach day on Tudor history for high school students who were interested in coming to Oxford. So they had a whole day where they had lunch at one of the colleges and they had a lecture from a professor, but their whole morning was focused on Wikipedia, and we had a little bit of kind of lesson on copyright and on open content and the types of things that Wikipedia stood for and that libraries are involved in. And we got out some of the original manuscripts, so they got to see something signed by Elizabeth I, which they were quite pleased with. And then they helped us add images to related articles. So it was much more structured. We'd set it up so that each group had a specific image and a specific article that they needed to work on. But by the end of the day, they all had Wikipedia accounts and they had all edited Wikipedia. And a lot of the feedback from the students was that they hadn't realized how easy it was. They hadn't realized that they could do it. They hadn't realized how important it was for people to do it in a positive way. So again, we were quite thrilled with that. And traffic from Wikipedia to that website has averaged at about 6% of our traffic as well. So the biggest editathons that we've done are an annual event. Some of you might know about Ada Lovelace Day, which is an international day in October that celebrates Ada Lovelace, but primarily women in science in general. Ada Lovelace was one of the first computer programmers and worked with Charles Babbage. So we've worked with the IT services team in Oxford and made it part of an annual series of events over a whole term that the libraries and IT services put on around social media and digital communication. And this has been our most successful edit-a-thon, I think in part because the Women in Science is just a big draw. People are really excited about that. We've been able to have more publicity because of the series that it's a part of, but also because it's been a little bit more structured. So we've worked very hard on this to make sure that we provide a list of suggestions of articles that people can edit, which we do for every edit-a-thon, but we work a bit harder on this one. We provide library resources, so in the past few times we've brought library books over. We've been able to photocopy some archival material that's appropriate, CVs and resumes and that type of thing, so that people can add dates to articles, and also point people in the direction of online resources that are really useful. So like I said, we've had more participants. We had 24 this year. They worked on 18 articles, which isn't as many as some edit-a-thons, but the quality was really good. People were writing new articles from scratch and really going through them and making good things happen. And we had great cake as well. Like I said, that always helps. So just a little bit about planning and actually running an edit-a-thon. The most important thing to start with is to decide your theme and your format and your goals. So are you going to use a particular resource? Is it about a particular subject? Is it just a general, you know, welcome to the library resources and that type of thing? Just getting that out there in advance. What is your audience? Is this, you know, open to everyone? Do you want only experienced editors because you simply don't have the resources to teach anyone? It often helps to provide a hook of some type. So we've done tours of current exhibitions. I mentioned we had a display with Elizabeth I stuff to go with the Tudor house and that type of thing. And if you can advertise that in advance, people really like to hear that. Your venue is incredibly important. We've been lucky enough that we have had access to a computer lab, so people don't have to worry about bringing their own computers. But if they do, make sure that you let people know they'll need to do that. Make sure that you have Wi-Fi available for people, that there are enough plugs for their computers and that type of thing. And it doesn't hurt if you can get a hold of, you know, a few backup laptops in case people don't have them or forget to bring their own. Having trainers and helpers is really important. I mentioned going through Wikimedia to find trainers who can help you, and if you have access to a chapter, they're often really willing to do that and send along someone who's experienced and often who has experience in training people. If you're comfortable training people yourself, that's also brilliant. And if you don't feel like you can provide any training, but you can be there to kind of answer questions and that type of thing, that's also really useful. Even experienced editors often have questions. Things as simple as, you know, how should you reference an archival manuscript? You know, what's the format that you use in your library you prefer for your material? That type of thing. Putting up a project page on Wikipedia is really helpful because you can add all the details, but you can also let people register themselves and add themselves, and you can put up links to all the articles that you'd like edited and links to other resources. And finally, just advertising everywhere. We've sent things out to relevant academic lists, both within the university and worldwide. Tell your local Wikipedia groups if you have any. Tell your local Wikimedia chapter, and then do the usual, you know, posters, social media. Get your university or your parent organization to help you share. And finally, just some basics for kind of on the day. Set up training for the beginning if you can. So start things off with a bit of an introduction and let people know what they're doing. It's important to think about account creation because Wikipedia will limit the number of new accounts that can be set up from any IP address on a given day. So if you have access to Wikimedia, they can help you get around that. Also, if you have trainers with enough experience and permissions, they can. But otherwise, you might want to ask people to set up accounts in advance or something like that. I keep saying snacks, but I can't emphasize it enough. Have cake and snacks. Overall, just make sure that you're friendly and that you can answer questions or have someone there who can answer questions. And then finally, in terms of tracking impact, it's really important to take your participants' Wikipedia usernames on the day so that you can follow up to see what's actually been edited and worked on. You might go around and ask them what they're working on, but it's really difficult sometimes in the midst of things to actually see what's happening. And if you take their names, you can go back and track their edits and just get a list of everything that's been worked on. There are other ways to do it. You can have people add a tag to their user page, but I've found that that's the easiest thing to do, is just get a list. And then you can do it at your own leisure. You don't have to worry about getting anything before it disappears, and generate a list. Now, I'm not going to take you through any live edits or anything like that, like some people have bravely done, but I will show you very quickly some of the pages that we've set up for our events. If you give me just a minute. Oops. So I've tried to make these big enough so that everyone can see. So this is a page we set up for this year's Ada Lovelace Editathon. We just make sure we've got all the basic details, how people can contact us, and a timetable. Participants, if people don't have an account in advance, they probably won't sign up here, but it does help you get some idea of who's coming, particularly people who already have a Wikipedia account, so you know kind of who's coming along who might be able to answer questions and get going. And then the most important bit, I think, here is we were able to provide a lot of information about things that people might be willing to edit. And that, particularly for people who are new, is the most useful thing, because people will come along and say, well, I don't really know where to start, or, you know, I don't know enough to write an article. And if you have a list of suggestions, you know, if you can say, well, this woman here has a great article, but it really needs some proofreading, or, you know, we've been told that the dates need fixing, people can do simple things like that, or they can add images, that type of thing. And if they're not terribly comfortable editing Wikipedia, then that's a great way to start. You can also then list your outcomes here, and we were able to list further resources as well. And that's kind of the basic format that we've used for every page. I think I copied and pasted it from someone else's Editathon 2 or 3 years ago when we had our first one, and I've just used it for all of the all of our events since. And that is basically it from me. I will pass over to Marilee now, so that she can give you some general tips and tricks.
Thanks, Liz. So Mary and I have been sitting here in this room chatting about how we should plan our next Editathon. So getting inspired here. So I'm just gonna close with some kind of general tips. These are based on my own experience editing Wikipedia. That's a picture of me at Wikimania in Washington, D.C., and I'm proudly sporting my National Archives tattoo. The National Archives has been engaged with Wikipedia for quite some time, and I consider them to be real leaders in this area. So, these are kind of some tips based on both my own experience and also some stumbling blocks that I've seen other institutions encounter. Fortunately, we didn't hear a lot of real horror stories. I think the Getty was the institution that had the most kind of tales to tell about getting blocked. But it really is important to not only know about conflict of interest, but really to take conflict of interest on board and to be transparent in your editing. Sandra shared her conflict of interest statement, and it's great to have a conflict of interest statement on your user page and on the user pages of staff who are doing the work, and to really be clear with yourself about why it is you're contributing to Wikipedia. Of course, everybody loves to see the traffic go up, but really what you want to do is you want to increase traffic to your collections and increase avenues for people to be able to get to stuff in your collections. It's really going to be useful for them. Another tip, something that I've heard and I've taken in my own practice, is filling out the edit summary. So when you save a page, it'll ask you to please summarize what you do. And I think that this is also useful, and I've heard from administrators that if they don't see information in the edit summary, that it could cause them to look more closely at edits. So that's just a small thing to do. Another thing to do is to, really be here to help. Although you can very quickly, as Mary demonstrated, add links to your collections very, very quickly, you really want to be reflective on what you're doing and don't behave like a spam machine. Another thing that's really great to do, and I was happy to hear of Andra and others talking about this, is not only adding links to your own collections, but also add links to other major collections at other institutions. Not every institution is going to have the ability to or time to be able to learn to edit Wikipedia, so doing a turn for others at other institutions is also a good practice. And again, as you saw represented in some of the presentations, contribute other content, not just links to your collection. You have your finding aids may have additional information about institutions or about organizations or people that are in your collections. And you yourself, as an archivist, have a lot of knowledge of these collections, and you have something to add. Even if it's just copy editing, you have a lot to contribute to improve the encyclopedia. The other thing is to become familiar with Wiki community norms, become comfortable with communicating on talk pages. This is how Wikipedians communicate with one another, and if you're going to become a Wikipedian, you should be comfortable communicating there too. If you're not sure about what you're doing, ask questions, and again, the talk page is a great place for this. If your edits are reverted, if somebody removes a link that you've added, go ahead and ask why. And with all of this as kind of a background, I should say that I do believe that we all are here to help, and you should embrace the Wikipedia tenet of being bold. Just you are here to help, and if some bad thing happens, don't be afraid to be assertive and ask why, what you did wrong, and learn to improve. Finally, it can be a little challenging to find local Wikipedians depending on your local circumstances. Liz was very lucky to have Wikimedia UK. They're a fantastic organization, and they're very active in the community and really look for ways to engage with cultural heritage institutions. You can have some luck looking in Wikipedia. If you do a search in Wikipedia, not in the article space, but in the Wikipedia space, you can sometimes uncover subject or project pages. There is, for example, a San Francisco Bay Area task force, people who are interested in editing articles that relate to the Bay Area. You might use this as a technique to track down Wikipedians or try to find a local chapter. And of course, I recommend that everybody join the GLAM Wiki group. I'll send out a note to attendees after this, or perhaps somebody can post something to the chat on GLAM Wiki and how to hook up with that group. But you can get on various mailing lists and also receive help that way. So we have some time for questions, and I see that we do have a couple of questions in chat. If you have questions in chat, please feel free to put them into chat. I know that there was a question kind of earlier on about links. So if you're adding links to finding aids, do you keep a list of links that you've added in case your finding aids move? And I think I'll ask Mary, since you're in the room with me, and then also Andra, maybe you might have some answers to that question as well.
So yeah, we do definitely keep lists of links, so we could go back and check, and this is back in 2009. There are other ways of checking back your links to your contribution pages and things like that. But we also do use persistent identifiers in our links so that they remain persistent. Someone asked about links changing. So we use a persistent identifier as part of the link so that shouldn't be a problem.
And at the GRI, we do the same thing. We do have an internal list on an internal wiki where we keep track of the links that have been added, and we use handles for our finding aids so that they are also persistent.
Saskia asked Liz, oh, I'm sorry, did anybody else have anything to add about keeping track of edits you've made to Wikipedia and making sure that links don't break? Okay. Saskia had a question about working with volunteers during an editathon. Liz, you answered that in chat, but if you wanted to expand on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, I mentioned that we have volunteers from Wikimedia who come, and We do use volunteers. They're often, I mean, they're usually connected to the foundation, the ones that we've worked with anyway, and have sort of been vetted as being their trainers that they send out. And that's been great, but we have also had other people, kind of local Wikipedia editors, come along who aren't necessarily connected to the foundation, and we've gotten to know them over, a few editathons, and now they do help out as well. We know that they're, good at answering questions and that type of thing. And it's been a lifesaver. I could do the training. I would probably be more comfortable with it after, 4 or 5 editathons, but it's not really my area of expertise, and these are people who do it all the time. And so there's a few around the southern UK area who are retired or they're regularly available, and so they've come to us. I think there's one person who's been at every event we've run. And so that's just been really, really helpful, having him there to kind of do the basics and to answer questions that I may not know the answer to.
There was there's a question from Stephen Hearn. Is it better to create an article focused on a collection or to link to a collection, I think, from an article about its focus? I'm probably getting that wrong, but any opinions about that? I think that my reaction is that creating an article from scratch can be quite difficult. It's certainly not the first thing that you'd want to undertake if you're just getting started, although certainly Dan's done a terrific job of doing that. And I think it probably depends on what you have to work with. So reactions from any of our presenters about that?
I'll jump in on that. This is Dan. I absolutely don't think you should be creating articles about the collection unless it's a truly outstanding collection that had, they talk, when you do create biographies, for example, they need to be notable persons. I can't remember the terminology exactly. That collection would it's unlikely that we're talking about collections at that level, but that, sure, if there's a article that focuses on related topics, providing links to a collection that speak to the topic, that would definitely be the way to think about enhancing Wikipedia articles for the most part.
Yeah, Dan, I think you have that exactly right. I think I was misreading the question. Creating an article about a collection would probably not rise to the level of notability unless it was a really outstanding collection. But I think using your collection descriptions to improve Wikipedia is something that's within search. So Louise asks, where can I search to find editing partners? And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just show like one technique that I have for searching for people. So I'm looking in Wikipedia right now, and so I'm going to search for, let's see, I'm going to search for Minnesota. Minnesota, when you start to search, and you can see how I can't, Minnesota. And you can see how I can't type and talk at the same time. You can also see that in the drop-down box it defaults to various articles, but then there's also this thing down at the bottom containing Minnesota. There's probably a better way to get to this. And you'll see that searching in Wikipedia defaults to the article space, but what I want to do is I want to do searching in Wikipedia. One of the things to realize is that Wikipedia keeps documentation on itself in Wikipedia, which is kind of a strange thing to think about. And then this will get me to project spaces, so not article space, but project space. So here's Wiki Project Minnesota, and it's all about the project. And then there's participants. So you can look here and you can see, you can go to various people. So here's somebody who's interested. Here's Archivist 100. Who's Archivist 100? Associated with the Minnesota Historical Society. So this could be, using the project space can be a good way to track down Wikipedians. You can also search for some places have local chapters. If you have particular questions, I'd be happy to help anybody try to track down Wikipedians. Also, if you join some of the lists, you can put out an email. I'm going to stop sharing my desktop and go back to this. So anyhow, it's a little bit kludgy, and it can be kind of hit or miss. Sometimes it's better to just join a list and ask for people to, to help. Wikipedians are very well networked with one another, and it may be that if you find somebody through an email list, they're able to help you a little better. Let's see, more questions. Scanning the list here. Is it prohibited to use a work email when editing content that may or may not have connection to the organization? And I assume what you mean here is it prohibited to set up an email, a Wikipedia account that's connected to your work email address? And I would say that editing content that has to do with the organization that you work for should be probably the very last thing on your list of things to do, because there's a pretty clear conflict of interest. That having been said, I do know of institutions who have successfully edited the pages that relate to their organizations. In another webinar, we featured speakers from Montana State University who created and did a fantastic job on Montana State University Library webpage. But they had quite a lot of experience editing Wikipedia before they did that. If you created an account and then your very first act was to go and create or edit a page that related to your organization, that would probably not be, according to Wikipedia norms, that would not be a great thing to do. It would be better to get experience doing other things and really kind of take on board what goes into a really great encyclopedia article before you start doing that kind of thing. So it's not to say, no, you shouldn't do that, but you should really use quite a bit of caution and also have quite a bit of experience, and probably get advice from more experienced Wikipedians. So hopefully that helps you with that. Here's another question. Has anyone gone through Wikipedia's documentation and tutorial pages for tips on editing, and have they been useful? Anyone want to comment on that? There's a lot of documentation on Wikipedia
Yeah. Yeah, and I know the project lead on our project, Arcadia Falcone, she did go through all that documentation, and I think it was really helpful, and I've looked at it as well, so I think it's definitely a good place to start.
I have gone through some of it. I also found the GLAM Wiki pages really useful for beginners.
So here's a question for Dan, and I'll share some. I'm gonna use a minute while I hope Dan's talking to find a link and put it into the chat box. Dan, here's a question from Jennifer. I'm wondering if you have an idea how many area studies librarians are editing Wikipedia with their arcane stuff. Others like you.
I believe some of my area studies colleagues are doing this. I can't think of anybody in particular off the top of my head.
Okay, that wasn't enough time for me to get a link.
And I take great pride in doing the arcane stuff.
Yeah. So Dan, here's another question. What about adding a link in an entry bibliography to a full text book or article that you've written on the topic? Is that self-serving? Is this something that you've run into, citing your own stuff in Wikipedia?
I've had edits on the original article I contributed. That was one of the very first things I did. I might have approached it differently with a little bit of experience. I think it's great advice to tell people to work on some other things first and to kind of figure out the Wikipedian ethic. There's the 5 pillars of Wikipedia that are kind of also a useful, both kind of useful and a little bit confusing because they're not very specific, and they talk about none of the rules are written in stone and that sort of thing. And they imply some flexibility when in fact there are some things that you know, they've been very, I think, quite rigid about, and probably in some good ways. There's lots of documentation on conflicts that scholars have had in contributing. One of the pillars is to not publish your own research, original research. I decided when I was doing my contribution that it wasn't original research, it was simply compiling existing sources and putting them together. I think there are a lot of potential problems, but when you approach it as a public service and you work to enhance access as a kind of a very general public access to resources, and you're not doing it as a way to promote your collections, or at least that's not, you know, what comes off as the primary purpose. I think that's where the safe ground is.
Yeah, I think if you really felt like you were on thin ice in some way, that you could be very transparent about it, and you could not only add the link, but you could also on the talk page for that article highlight that you've added the link and also out yourself in some ways having a potential conflict of interest, but then, you know, say, and I think that this is an important link because, and in that way you're not doing anything shady. In fact, you're really kind of overly calling attention to your actions and engaging the community to asking them to respond if they think that your actions have been inappropriate.
I think that's exactly the right approach, because you do have a lot of organizations and individuals that have specifically used Wikipedia to promote themselves and their policies and their goals. And as cultural institutions, we have particular knowledge about a lot of very useful resources, and if we all eliminated ourselves from doing that, they would be less available.
That's very true, and just being sensitive to the wiki community, being very on guard against link spam, and doing all that you can to both be sensitive to that and to not fall into that trap. I'm not seeing any other questions. So I'm thinking, Melissa, this might be a good time to wrap us up.
Okay, well, thank you, Marilee, and thank you to all the wonderful presenters today. Just to recap, we have recorded this webinar, and we'll post the recording in the next week or so, and we'll let you know as soon as that's available. We've also just posted the slides online, and the link to those are right there in chat. So I think that's all we need to cover. So thank you again for joining us, and this concludes today's webinar.